Having a good time talking to friends is another way to lose track of time. Hi, Xiao. How are you?
Hi, Ryan. I'm great.
Good.
I'm glad to see you.
Good to see you too. So this is, I have to get my head in there. So this is called Free Play, and it's just like all the themes, it's just open, and we'll talk about whatever comes to mind. And yeah, when was the last time you lost track of time?
Well, I was trying to think about it when you were asking the question, and I wanted to come up with something fun. And, but maybe I'm just a nerd, but it was this morning I woke up, guess around 8:30, and I started, after I washed my face, did all my morning stuff, I started lesson planning. I'm teaching an art history course at community college, and
Uh-huh.
I just got lost in the lesson plan. I mean, before I knew it, it was like 3. And I was like, oh, I have to eat something. And, it was like, it really flew by. I just got lost in,
Yeah,
when you're about to teach something and you're so into it.
right.
Just, yeah. So that was it.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because sometimes the way that losing track of time, it's like there's something iterative going on. There's like some structure that you're kind of working within. Like that's why I think of games. There's structure to games, but there's also a
Yeah.
lot of, you like to repeat whatever it is that you're doing. And that allows perhaps kind of the loss of time, which is,
I think parameters, like to
yeah,
have some kind of parameter um, that you can be free in, I think helps a lot. You
yeah,
need a little bit of a boundary
right.
to lose yourself in.
Yeah, interesting, huh? Because you always think of losing yourself as having no boundaries, but maybe it's a pleasurable boundary that, yeah, might.
Because you can bounce around as hard as you like, but you'll be in there.
So with that said, I'm trying to think we could talk a little bit about how we know each other. We know each other from when we both were living in New Haven. And you're still living in New Haven?
I
Great.
am. I'm still here.
I love that you're teaching at community college in New Haven. That's great. I think that's.
Yeah.
I teach community college too, and it was a little hard online because I teach young kids, and a lot of them were afraid to turn on their cameras.
Mm-hmm.
Which is such a thing, you know. I guess that
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that being seen is scary.
Yeah, especially now, they probably don't have most of us don't have a lot of practice being seen, you
Right.
know, without our masks on, even when we're outside.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
maybe we're a little shy.
I was a little afraid that I'd take off, so when I started to take off my mask more to more people, that they would notice that like the lower part of my face had aged or something.
The thing is that I'm kind of a sunscreen user. I'm a very
Right.
religious sunscreen user, and I kind of thought about it when the pandemic started. Do I just need sunscreen on the top area of my face rather on the bottom? But it just got too hard, so I just put it all over. But it's like all the things that we see to be outdoors, the play things that, the way we play as we go outdoors. But now I mean,
Yeah.
all my outdoor stuff is I visit my wardrobe once in a while. My outdoor wardrobe and say,
Now you're
I
outdoor.
have
What
to
was
take
that?
you out.
What was?
Wardrobe, my
Oh,
clothes.
oh, oh, that's right. You've been so if you're indoors now, you only have indoors outfits. Yes, I get that.
Yeah, and I guess I can wear my outdoor stuff indoors, but it's not the same. I feel it just reminds me how much I rely on other people to fulfill sort of aesthetic expression. As, like when I dress myself, when I put
Ah,
makeup, I mean, it's for myself, but there's something about being seen that makes me feel seen,
yeah.
that there's something to reflect from. So I miss that, although I'm an introvert, like for sure, in a homebody. I do miss those aspects of creativity.
Right. And also performance for me. There's a little bit of performance and
That's the right word. Yeah, that's
yeah,
what it is.
yeah. I get to, I get excited because I get to create a look or a look, Lewk. So with that said, why don't we go ahead and start our doodling? A good question came through the comments that we can think about when we're doodling, which was, does doodling have boundaries? So let's go ahead and explore
Hmm.
that in our doodles. Okay, I'm gonna do the switcheroo of the camera. Okay, my camera's gonna be upside down, so that's interesting.
How's that?
That's good, except I can't reverse my camera right now. Hold on. What is going on? You get started without me, and I'll join in just a
Okay.
moment. I tried to be
This is
tricky, and then I tricked myself into not knowing which direction I was going. Oh my goodness.
it's part of it's part of the experience of being online now.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it's true. That and the cats kind of getting into the camp, getting in. The cats or the dogs taking up some of the attention too. All right. And when it comes to doodling, just kind of as a note to our studio audience, there is no right or wrong way to do it. There's just your way of doing it. And it can be representational or abstract or whatever you want.
Do you doodle on a daily basis, Ryan?
Um, so Friday nights is reserved for serious doodling, where I
Uh-huh.
really will put my attention into doodling. And otherwise, I doodle quite a lot on notes and pieces of paper and basically work-related things, so that I have a lot of like scraps of paper with little interesting doodles on it. I kind of seem to go through trends too of different kinds of mark making that I do. And I tend to work really fast. But yeah, how about you?
You know, when I doodle, we were talking about boundaries. I only, even as a kid, as a really little kid, I only doodled in areas that, like, in notebooks that I designated for that. I
Oh,
would never doodle on my class notes, and I would never doodle. I mean, I doodle in my journal, or draw in my journal,
uh-huh,
because my journal was both writing and drawing.
uh-huh.
But yeah, but I never did it in my school notes because I was a total nerd, and I just felt like that was sacrilegious. But I stopped doodling for a long time. I guess the um the higher education that I went up in, the less I doodle. But now I'm getting back into it because I really missed that part of my childhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and but didn't you also in your major specialize in children's
Yeah.
education? So it's just so funny
Well,
that those things.
in high school, I went to an arts high school, and
Uh-huh.
I painted, and I mean, so I studied art. I was a studio art major, so I did a lot of drawing then. I guess what I mean about when I stopped was when I went to college and um in graduate school.
Yeah. I think also too, there's such an emphasis on only one kind of learning. Once you get into higher education, it becomes
Yeah.
very very much language oriented, and doodles are kind of nonverbal. Well, they're not
Hmm.
kind of, they are nonverbal. I mean, I do feel like we all have our own language. Don't know exactly what the language means, but I guess that's kind of how it works. Like abstract work is like that too. It's a language, and then you kind of decide what it means to yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And sort of to figure out like how you work, you don't really get to choose it. It kind of emerges, and you can decide what to do with it. But I find that everyone has like a certain style,
Uh-huh.
even when it's doodling.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's true. When I love to hear from people when they at the end of the doodle with me, when people come, when they decide to show me send work that they've done or doodles that they've done through my messages. I love to see there's such a variety, and I kept them, and I probably should figure out a way to show them. I think at some point it would be nice for Doodle with me to have its own page, but the only problem with that is that already people will probably it'd be like starting over.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the weird thing about social media. It's like you kind of have to maintain a presence, and it would be starting a new presence. And anyway, blah blah blah. It's funny how we've all become marketers.
You're right. You can start by not thinking about that, but then you start to strategize.
Yeah, I
I
think it
think
might.
it's inevitable.
Well, and that getting back to the boundaries thing. I mean, maybe that's the boundaries of social media, is that they encourage thinking in a maybe a corporately modeled way because corporations make them, right? So
Yeah.
even though those technologists all in like Silicon Valley are playing, because there's a whole thing about like how they encourage play in those places. At the end result still is probably not to be a downer, but is to control as well. So it's
Yeah.
like
Well, I kind of think I tend to think we're born into the matrix. So we don't really, I mean, we don't really, it's really hard to opt out of it. So we kind of have to figure out using the resources we have
yeah.
and the specificities of our circumstances, how we want to situate ourselves in the matrix and respond to it.
Now, how do you see the matrix? What does that look like to you?
It looks like institutions
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah, and how and systems, like how things are set up. I don't think it's all bad, but I think that it's not distributed very fairly.
No, I think we can agree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both probably witnessed it quite a lot. I think a lot of people have witnessed it lately.
Hmm.
You just can see more and more the symptoms of a system that's just not really built for everybody. And
Yes.
and I think that's always been like I'm a big fan of 60s and 70s film. I know it seems kind of odd, but you can start to see those even in those time, even in films which were supposedly during kind of a more liberal time, you can still see a lot of bias and just
Hmm.
unchallenged ideas. And when you watch, and I know you watch a lot. Do you watch, or do you just like the film stills of the 20s and 30s?
Oh, I watched, speaking of free play,
Uh-huh.
one of the things that I did as a kid that may be unusual was that when I was, I think starting around when I was like 9 or 10, one of the things available at the public library were old films, like VHS films. So
Uh-huh.
like, Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire
Yeah, yeah.
and, these old movies, and I just watched them because it was what I had. And so I kind of grew up with old films. Like sometimes when I'm hanging out with, let's say, more mature adults, I would mention something and they'll be surprised that I knew what that was.
Right.
So yeah, so I have a thing for black and white. Like I watch Metropolis, like even the ones that didn't have sound yet. Um, and I,
Yeah.
I guess that's part of like the my love of aesthetics. I think it really honed it.
I no,
Like,
I agree. I mean, it's very interesting to the lighting in a lot of old Hollywood films, especially in the 20s and 30s, you've got a lot of European talent
Yeah.
coming over, and the lighting is immaculate, and also just even the makeup is really interesting. The use of like paraffin on people's lips,
Mm-hmm.
and how matte,
Mm-hmm.
kind of this lovely matteness, you know. And,
Well, yeah, and they had to kind of use makeup and costume in a way that would show well on black and white
right.
because it's not the same thing as color. And I was a fan of RKO films,
Of course,
just
yeah.
for like that was for me the aesthetic that something about the set designers and the cinematography that I really like a lot. Um, there was a certain look, to like I know I like there's something familiar that I really got even at like 10 or 11.
Now, were you talking about musicals like that? You were
Yeah, I really love Busby Berkeley, and I
Crosby.
really love the early Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire films. The first Ginger Roger and Fred Astaire film that I watch, and which is still my favorite, is The Gay Divorcee, and a lot of the Astaire and Rogers films take place on an ocean liner.
Yeah,
And so it was very, 20s, 30s, Art Deco.
right.
And I, I really love that style. And then when I was in college, I actually wrote a paper about, about the Astaire and Rogers set design.
Yeah, because I guess it's really deco, but
Yeah.
but what I also remember, and um, there's some really early Joan Crawford films. She used to be in
Oh,
musicals
yeah.
too, with these
Our
amazing.
Dancing Daughters.
I haven't seen that one, and I'm forgetting which one I've seen, but the doors are enormous. The windows are so tall. The drapes are so gauzy, and they're always blowing, and
Mm-hmm.
everything's very tall. Like they didn't try to pretend to have a ceiling. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was,
No, that's part of the magic.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's sort of a universe that's very specific to that film era.
right, right.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's fascinating when you do watch film, like how specific things are to the time. Like there's I guess even now I have to say, yeah, I mean there are looks, there are aesthetics,
Hmm.
like and that's part of, but I guess I'm trying to understand, like, what does it communicate? Like is there a philosophy behind it? Because I kind of am a fan, like everything that's got a philosophy. Is there a is there a worldview that's behind the way things look in different times?
Hmm.
And if designers were going for that, what was what was it that they were going for? Was it the feeling? I guess was a kind of poetry, but even the idea, and we are talking about kind of play, this idea of losing track of time, and that kind of romantic 30s ocean liner look. There is a feeling
Hmm.
of losing track of time. The way those things look, it seems to be always, it's not really in the world, it's in a world of its own.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's why it's important that it's not on land. It's like in the water, so it's more of a fluid space.
Right, right. The idea of fluid, yeah. Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
interesting.
And to me, like they're never married, really, because they're about to get married at the end usually. Whoever they're playing. I mean Fred and Ginger.
Yeah.
Um, so you never get to the point where they really return to the land. It's either like a dining club that
I,
the set is in, where it looks like it's in a skyscraper,
right.
above the everyday world,
Yeah.
or they're on the ocean.
Right.
But it is very effective.
Yeah, it is. I think it's a real, I mean, I think they were coming up with a formula that really helped people escape, you know,
Yeah.
escape from their own, like their everyday cares.
It was the depression.
Right. And also too,
Yes.
like life expectancy was much shorter. People were getting sick, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a little bit like our time now, you know. Like I look at the
Hmm.
new Little Nas video. I don't know if you've seen that, Little Nas.
I
Anyway,
haven't seen the video, but
he's
I know
been,
what you're talking about.
yeah, he kind of pole dances from heaven into hell, basically. And
Yes. Yes.
and what's interesting to me is I look at the aesthetic and I'm like, it's kind of like um, it's kind of like a 20s aesthetic in terms of like tight hair curls and finger waves and things like that in terms of style.
Hmm.
But also it's, you know, it's definitely hip hop. It's not like a jazz thing.
Hmm.
Um, and
You know, to an extent, I wonder whether, like, I mean, it's crossed my mind that the RKO, not just the sets, but the costumes and what they had to do with like shaping consumerist tastes.
yeah, yeah,
Um, because you may, I mean, I would imagine audiences would want that ocean liner aesthetic for their furniture.
yeah, I bet. I mean, I bet there must be, you know, more, you know, cheaper versions of that same thing. I know, like, there's like, I like sometimes I'll find like this cheap deco pottery, but it's not like made out of. It's like it's basically ceramic. It's not bisque or anything. But you can find it, and you know that that was just mass produced, and so that people could have a little bit of that maybe on-screen glamour. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of artists were. It's probably the best way to advertise is probably artists working in Hollywood. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about because, you know, people like now, I'm not conscious of it, also because I'm of a different generation. But I imagine that people are imitating things they see or buy on Instagram. Like,
Oh, for sure.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so, you know, so it's like, but how much of that is a choice and how much of it is just something we just do without thinking, you know?
Yeah.
So that gets back to that matrix idea. How do you think,
Mm-hmm.
so you never think of yourself as battling the matrix. I guess that's maybe I'm
Well,
simplifying it too much.
no. I think it's a good question because I think I tried to battle it and I was like, there's no way I can win because it just takes up so much energy. And I
Right,
think it's just a matter of like, within this lifetime, what is possible for me and what is without like stripping me of energy and joy. So I
right,
think it's sort of like, and it's constantly shifting, but I think that's what I can't be like Keanu and like, you know, tear it down. Um, but that's kind of what I'm trying to work toward is with other people and a lot of artists really, but really a lot of reading and talking with people that um, who are concerned and think about similar things. Um,
and you,
just to sort of talk about it. So like everything I do is somehow related to what do I do about being in the matrix and
right,
I think that it's also about concern for after I'm gone. How can we leave this matrix situation better or more humane for the
right,
kid?
right. And and we're talking about white supremacy and we're talking about patriarchy and is that,
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah, all of that. They're all connected.
yeah, and especially with the
Um,
environmental issues now, how much all of that is connected with the maintenance of like a um, you know, kind of a capitalist economy where it's excessive. We don't really need
mhm.
a lot of what is being consumed, right? I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, it's an
and
interesting.
we're all like we're all implicated in it in ways because it's hard not to be. It's hard to live without relying on it on some level.
Right, right, and it's interesting because you also you went to school for theology, right? So,
Yeah, that's
so
related to it too.
yeah, is do you find that within the church there are people who are thinking of resistance to the
Oh yeah,
really?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like for me, it depends on, because even within like a single denomination, you have so many, there's, I think there's a lot more free agency
Huh.
and than one would imagine. Um, and for me, I'm a theologian all around, so I'm not necessarily like tied to, say, a Christian
Okay.
way of theology, even though I am, and that's mostly from where I'm working at. It's more of about like being human and how to do so in an ethical way.
Right. Right.
So it's about ethics, really.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, and I don't want to, I hope you're not feeling like put on the spot. The reason why,
no, I love talking about
well,
this.
the reason why I ask about it is because I really was not raised with any religion. So, I mean, it kind of was raised with a spiritual practice from my family,
Hmm.
but it wasn't a church or an institutional based
Yeah.
one. So I'm fascinated by this, and the only way that I know about Catholicism is either through people I've dated, or
Hmm.
or through movies, you know, because and a
Yeah.
lot, yeah, and a lot of amazing '80s performance artists came out of being lapsed Catholics, so I know a lot about that stuff too. But
Well, I didn't grow up with a formal religion either.
oh, really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I was raised like with no religion, I guess.
Oh,
Although I was really influenced by my mom. My mom is Buddhist,
uh-huh.
and she kind of did it on her own though, so it's not like she engaged anyone else in the family with it. And
Right.
I would just loved watching her go about, like would just know there were special days where she'd go to temple and then she'll come home and she'll um do things. And I was just really fascinated watching her. And there was something so, like, for me, um I don't want to say that it's a gendered thing because it's really ultimately not, but there was something that because my mom was not a very, I would say she didn't put on makeup and she didn't, she wasn't very, like into her looks, but I define, like, from watching her, that her expression of spirituality was what made her a woman,
Mm, mm,
if that
mm.
makes sense. And not that that was, but like, it's so interesting because I was such a girly girl, and what I was into was the rituals involved with womanhood that I watched on television and on women on the subway putting on their makeup before, on their way to work. And I kind of combined the ritualization of that with being spiritual as well.
That is so interesting because for me, that's what attracted me to those old, Busby Berkeley films. They're very, to me, feel ritualistic, and they feel, and
Yes,
the kind of glamour seems spiritual to me in that there's a perfection to it. Like,
absolutely.
yeah. And so I think that really kind of led me to be interested in like what, images could do. And I didn't understand them that at the time, but that there was there was a there was something sublime that the artists who were working in the film industry at that time were looking for. I think they truly were looking
Hmm.
for incredible beauty in a way that maybe
Yeah.
is different than now.
Hmm. Well, the Busby Berkeley movies were so, the camera work was so, it really got you into a zone sometimes. It
Mm.
did for me, and there's something about it that's kind of like, I would say the Rockettes would
Yeah.
still have a bit of,
Yeah.
but it's like, it's very mathematical. There's sort of there's sort of like a mechanical aspect to it, but aside from that, I mean, there are things in it that's about control and precision and all of that. But there is something like I get into a zone sometimes when I'm watching those underwater, um, the women
Right,
underwater, sort of like creating patterns, like patterns creating and morphing as
right.
you watch.
Yeah, and but it's also kind of like it's beautiful and for me a little fascist in that it's human beings. It's basically militaristic because it's human beings
With a
creating
camera angle. Yeah.
well but also that it's human beings creating these giant patterns together. So it's like it's both quite beautiful and everything's in harmony, but then also
Mm-hmm.
too the individuality is kind of not important, which is kind of
Yeah.
great. I mean, that's great, but then I get worried too. I mean,
Yeah.
if you've ever been in a situation where you aren't allowed to have individuality, it's a little scary too. So I don't know. It's very, I have, those movies are mixed for me because they're so beautifully done. And then I'm also a little like nervous about loving them. It's a little bit like Lenny Riefenstahl's Olympiad. They're
Mm-hmm.
beautifully photographed. I mean, basically all of the Calvin Klein, I think it's Calvin Klein and Bruce Weber, all that photography is built on that work, but it kind of idealizes Aryan beauty. So there's
Mm-hmm.
something, kind of effed up about
About
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know about yourself. I think it's good to acknowledge
But
that that you're drawn to something that is also, when you think about it, in a moral and ethical basis, is troubling.
do you ever have that situation?
All the time.
Okay, I just started to feel
Yeah.
really weird. I was like, oh my God. I had no idea I was such a fascist. But, I kind of knew a little bit. I mean, come on, as an artist, there is something about wanting to, that, that constant chaos and control kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, wow, yours looks almost like you could taste it. It looks very, like a, like a, I don't know, spearmint or peppermint, like a peppermint. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Well, I did I guess I do doodle food a lot. So these are my eggs, I guess.
Okay. I guess maybe
And
I was
then
influenced by your egg. What's weird is I
what
haven't been
did you
looking at
do?
your doodling. Um, I haven't been looking at your eggs, but I started to get these egg shapes coming up. But I tend to
Oh
do
yeah.
these.
Maybe we were thinking.
We were going for the symmetry. Well,
And then I did too.
on that. Oh yeah. Oh, I like it. And those are cherries. I think we've got. And here's. This is very. This is kind of 20s party on my side here.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
this is like, I don't know what. Yeah.
I love the colors.
Thanks. Yeah, I've been really getting into color. Actually, it's like the pandemic kind of sent me into color. Kind of like going to an old film and, getting transported. I think color does that for me. So actually, we are at the end of our time together, Xiao. So I'm going to switch
And
my,
this is so pleasurable.
see if I can get over here. All right. So I'm just going to announce, yeah, we're just letting people who've joined late. We meet every Friday. It's always a chat and a little doodling. We all do it together if you like to. If not, you can listen, zone out, and really, I encourage all of you to be as unproductive as possible during these 30 minutes. And we have nothing to give but time to ourselves, right? So let's do this again if you can. And I'd love to, and thank you very much, Xiao Situ.
Thank you.
You can go to check out her Instagram page. And otherwise, it's another Doodle with me, and we're done for Friday night. And I hope to see you next Friday. And have a lovely week and a lovely weekend. Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Ryan. See you next time.
Thank you. See you
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.